Hello, it's Elizabeth Busby here, and welcome to Discerning Marriage. We are getting raw today with something from my own past that I really want to talk to you about. It is 3 things that I wish people had told me when I was going through a breakup, because let's be honest, I got terrible breakup advice when I was going through my breakup, okay? I have excellent friends. They are wise, they are strong, they're beautiful. Like, why didn't they have better advice? I don't know. Love you guys, but anyway, here I am. I am here to give you advice that I wish I had had that would have prevented some very embarrassing moments for me and some probably pretty painful moments for the guy. So here we go. Top 3 pieces of advice. Number 1, take some radio silence. Take some time after the initial breakup before you talk to the person again. I like to say a great number to start with when you're trying to figure out how much time is a good amount of time. I like to say 40 days. You know why? Because God likes 40 days. Lots of great things in the Bible happen in 40-day increments or 40-year increments, but we can't wait 40 years or no one will have any fertility left. So 40 days, okay? From the time where the breakup happened to when you guys talk again. This is extreme. People hate this advice, but the people who take this advice are very happy about it. And here is why. In those first few days, right after a breakup, there are so many feelings going on, okay, for both people. And this is something that people who receive the breakup don't actually think about. But for the person who's doing the breaking up, they have been thinking about this for a while, probably. They have been analyzing it, going over it in their mind, talking to their trusted people, etc. And honestly, in some senses, starting to pull away from the relationship. So when the person who does the breakup, they are going to feel probably a lot of relief because all of the feelings thinking that they've had as they've been thinking about coming to the breakup and what am I going to say and how are they going to react, blah, blah, blah. Once all of that stress and pressure is off, there's going to be a big exhale, right? A big feeling of like, whew, that was really hard, but it's behind me. That is going to be extremely offensive to the person on the receiving end of the breakup, in large part because most of the time they are surprised by it, or at least wouldn't have chosen for it to happen. Otherwise, they would have initiated the breakup. So the person on the receiving end of the breakup is starting their grieving process weeks, maybe months, maybe days, whatever, but a lot of time after the breaker-upper started the process, right? Does that make sense? Because the breaker-upper started it a while ago to think about it, to plan for it, to prep for it, to reach the day. And then the breaker-upper or the breaky-uppy, we need better terms for this. The person on the receiving end of the breakup, they're just starting their grieving process. So they're going to be filled with like sadness, embarrassment, anger, shame. They're going to start going through the 5 stages of grief. And that gets really messy, especially if they were caught off guard by the breakup. So the best thing that you guys can do is not talk to each other. That's going to be extremely challenging because there's a lot of pain, number 1. And number 2, you probably filled a lot of each other's time with your relationship and with talking to each other. So to go cold turkey from talking to not talking is going to feel very jarring and unnatural. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. A lot of times people feel these uncomfortable feelings and they think I have to do anything to not be feeling them anymore. But that's not always what those feelings mean. Sometimes those feelings mean my circumstances have changed and this is uncomfortable and humans hate change and I am rejecting this in my heart. But that doesn't mean you have to go process that with the person you just broke up with, right? Breakups are painful on so many different levels because you're grieving so many different things. When you go through a breakup, you are grieving not only the love that you had with the person and like the beloved, them as a person. You're grieving your best friend because probably in most relationships, they became your best friend. So you're grieving that. You're grieving the person who you spent time with, right? So the way your time was spent, now that has changed and that is different and that is hard. And you're grieving the future because in all likelihood, you had this idea of a future with them. And now that whole future has changed. So you have these 4 dynamics of a breakup that you're having to process. That is a lot to process. If you aren't careful, you're going to be processing it with the person or reaching out to them and they're having to figure out, do I answer this call? Do I not? Like, how do I navigate? Okay. So just don't talk to each other. Number 2 piece of advice. In that span of time, whatever that span of time is that you pick, but 40 days is a really great starting point for this discussion. Don't find consolation in a budding relationship with a member of the opposite sex. Just don't do it. Even if you are the breaker-upper and you have been thinking about this for a long time and grieving it and processing it and deciding like, I'm going to end this relationship, and there's another person on the horizon that could be a really awesome fit for your spouse, don't do it for a number of reasons. 1, because the fact that you are in a relationship with the other person that you just broke up with means something, right? That relationship carried weight for you and for them. And even though you feel a relief at having had that really hard conversation being done, that conversation's over, it was really hard, you did it, go you. And you also are in a place where you now have this sense of relational freedom, like you can go pursue something with somebody else who will make you happier or be a better fit or whatever. You still need to honor the fact that you were in a commitment with the original person. I have people challenge this on a regular basis when I post this stuff on social media, and they're like, I don't owe them anything. And I'm like, you are wrong. You absolutely owe them something. If you didn't owe them anything, you shouldn't have gotten into a relationship in the first place, right? Now, what you owe them is very little. You don't owe them a lot, but to respect the dignity of the commitment you made to them to be boyfriend, girlfriend, you absolutely need to recognize that if you were to jump into a relationship with a new person or even begin like flirting, friendshipy, whatever with someone else, that's going to deeply hurt the other person. And that's uncharitable. Just don't do it. Just don't. If you're not ready to carry some of that weight, just don't get into a relationship in the first place. If you are not mature enough to recognize that your actions have consequences and you can affect another person's well-being based on how you respond to them, you're not in a position to discern marriage in the first place, because marriage is that like interconnectedness between two people, right? Where they maintain their own autonomy. It's not codependency, but it is a healthy interdependence. And if you're not able to recognize the impact that dating has on discerning if you want to do that with someone, then you're not in a place to be in a relationship in the first place, okay? The second person that it really does a disservice to is the person that you're just like flirting, starting, whatever with. That person deserves your undivided heart and attention. And you're not going to be able to give that person your undivided heart and attention when you're still working on what your life looks like, your time looks like, your future looks like, your friendships look like without the person from your past. Okay? It does them an extreme disservice. The third person that does not benefit from this sort of new budding relationship with a member of the opposite sex is you. You need some time. You need some time. You need some space to take a big deep breath and figure out who you are now. Because every time we're in a commitment with someone, we change, which is appropriate, right? Because the whole point of being in a commitment with someone is to see if you want to marry the person, which that is going to be one of the ultimate changes that you make to go from being two separate people to being one flesh with that person, right? And it's beautiful. It's a wonderful change. Ideally, it's a change toward virtue, toward sanctity, because that's what marriage does. It makes you holy. But you're a different person now than you were at the beginning of the relationship. And you need to figure out who that person is before you start trying to date someone else and figure out if you want to be one flesh with that person, right? Because you're not the same person you were before. And if you don't give yourself time to figure that out, to let all of the grief feelings subside or relief feelings subside or anger, embarrassment, whatever happened in the relationship that led to the breakup, if you don't give yourself time to process that, then you're going to find yourself in a relationship with someone who either may not be a good fit for you or is a good fit, but not right now. And so you have to go through a painful breakup with that person before you get married, whatever. Make sure that you are giving yourself time before you start any sort of anything. And I'm not even saying like, don't jump in a commitment right away. I'm saying don't even start pursuing that person, like time alone with them, any sort of thing that could be construed as a date with them, intimate, like texting, not even like inappropriate physical intimacy texting. I mean, just like sharing your heart with them. Don't go to them for consolation from the breakup. Like, just make sure that you are giving yourself time. Go to your same gender friends and process everything with them. And once that time has passed, you have processed the breakup after that, 40 days or whatever with your ex, then you are free to move on. And all three people in this situation will be much better benefiting from that. Okay, the last piece of advice that I wish I had at the time was make sure that you give yourself time and space to grieve. Okay. I hear a lot of like, just move on. It's not that big of a deal. Why are you still crying about this? It was forever ago. There is a lot of trauma that can happen in the heart of a person when a relationship ends. It's going to vary person by person and relationship by relationship. Obviously, relationships that lasted 3 months are going to be way different than relationships that lasted 3 years. But a 3-month relationship in your late 20s, early 30s is going to be sometimes more intimate than a 3-year relationship in early college. So like, it really just totally depends on where you are, where your heart is, a million things about your past and your present and your vision for your future. If you don't take the time to grieve this as an actual loss, then you are going to find yourself living out of that wound when you further discern marriage with someone else. And by that, I mean the choices that you make about discerning marriage in the future are going to be affected by the wound. For example, if you feel like your partner cheated on you before they broke up with you, whether or not you have proof of that or not, and you don't work on healing that grief and processing the anger and the pain and everything, then it's very possible that in your future relationships, you're going to be constantly hypervigilant for anything that they could be doing that would indicate that they might cheat on you one day, right? Like, so you'd be angsty about any opposite sex friendships they have. You'd be angsty about them talking about their exes or wanting their exes to come to the wedding or wanting to hang out with them or whatever. You'd be angsty about any sort of like text messages that are going on and like, what's on your phone? What are you looking at on your phone? Can I see your phone? I need to like see what's going on your phone, right? Social media interactions, like why are you liking that picture and this post or whatever from somebody else, right? So there are so many different ways that could manifest. And that's because that person did not heal properly, right? If any of that stuff is going on in your relationship, it's because there's trauma from the past breakup. And I always want to frame breakup healing in the context of the crucifixion of Christ, right? The heart of Jesus, because he experienced deep breakup pain on the cross, right? The lover wanting to give himself to the beloved and being completely rejected by her. That is what happened on the cross. Jesus Christ, the lover of all of our souls, and all of the, like his beloved, just completely rejecting that love. So Christ is so close to you in your breakup. And if you jump away from that pain and you're like, I'm just going to mask it with something else, or I'm just going to move on, or I'm just going to whatever, and invalidate that pain, you're missing an opportunity to know and understand the heart of Christ. And I don't want that for you, and Jesus doesn't want that for you. That rich intimacy with him is really what our life is all about. So when you are given the opportunity to know his heart in a more intimate way, I strongly suggest that you take it, even though it will be painful, just like it was painful for Christ on the cross. But we know that on the other side of the cross was the resurrection. And on the other side of this breakup pain is going to be resurrection for you too. And one day you will taste the sweet fruits of the victory in your relationship, in your love life. But for now, walking that way of the cross with Christ is the best way to authentic healing. So I hope this was helpful. And until next time, stay close to the heart of Jesus and be not afraid. Bye.